My name is Maya. Before moving forward with the story, I hope you all have liked, shared, and subscribed. Please don't forget to leave a comment after listening to the full story, and this is the story of how my husband thought he could outsmart me. It started quietly, too quietly. With whispers in the dark, bank transactions I never made, and a name I had never heard before, Leo Carter. My husband, Adrian, wasn't just planning to leave me. He was planning to take everything. Our home. Our savings. My future. And the worst part. He thought I would never notice. But he underestimated me. I woke up in the middle of the night to an empty bed. The sheets beside me were cold, untouched for long enough to tell me Adrian had been gone for a while. At first, I told myself he had probably gone to the bathroom or the kitchen. Nothing unusual. Then I heard his voice. Low. Careful. Whispering. The hallway light was off, but moonlight spilled across the floor as I quietly followed the sound. My heart began to race as his words drifted toward me. She doesn't suspect anything yet. I froze. Adrian's voice was smooth, calm, reassuring, like he was soothing someone on the other end of the line. My stomach twisted violently. Who was he talking to? This wasn't work. Adrian never whispered during work calls. He never cared if I overheard him. But this was different. Before I could hear more, I sensed movement. Footsteps. Panic shot through me. I rushed back to the bedroom and slipped under the covers, forcing my breathing to slow. Moments later, the mattress dipped. Adrian lay beside me, relaxed, like nothing had happened. Where were you? I asked softly, pretending to wake up. Bathroom, he replied instantly. Too fast. And the phone call? I asked, my voice still groggy. Client, he said. Just fixing details. A lie. I stared at him, searching his face for hesitation. There was none. He looked at me like he always did, confident, unreadable. For a second, I almost convinced myself I was overthinking. But his words echoed in my mind. She doesn't suspect anything yet. The next morning, I woke before Adrian. While he slept, I took my phone into the kitchen and opened our joint bank account. I rarely checked it. Adrian handled most of the finances. That morning changed everything. $500. $1,200. $750. $2,000. Dozens of withdrawals over the past 3 months. Small enough to go unnoticed, but frequent enough to form a pattern. None of them were bills. None were investments we had discussed. Something was very, very wrong. When Adrian walked into the kitchen moments later, smiling like nothing had changed, I realized the truth. Whatever he was planning, it had already begun. The rest of the day, I tried to act normal. I laughed when Adrian joked. I nodded when he talked about work. But inside, my thoughts were spiraling. Every time his phone buzzed, my stomach tightened. Every time he stepped into another room to take a call, I felt that invisible wall between us grow thicker. That night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling while Adrian slept beside me, his breathing slow and steady. He looked peaceful, like a man with nothing to hide. I wasn't convinced. By morning, the unease hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown sharper. Adrian strolled into the kitchen like nothing was wrong, kissed my temple, and poured himself coffee. You know, he said casually, we should probably get our financial stuff organized. Just in case of emergencies. I froze. Our finances. I repeated carefully. Yeah, he said, leaning against the counter. Do you have a list of your accounts? Passwords, assets, everything. It'd be smart to keep it all in one place. Adrian had never shown interest in my personal finances. We had always kept our individual savings separate. It had been an unspoken rule. "I guess I could put something together," I said, forcing a neutral tone. He smiled, but his eyes flickered for just a second before he changed the subject. That was when I knew. This wasn't about emergencies. This was preparation. That evening, Adrian was unusually relaxed. He laughed at the TV, suggested ordering takeout, even poured me a glass of wine. He was playing the role of the perfect husband, and that's what made my skin crawl. Then he got up to take a shower. His phone stayed on the coffee table. Adrian never left his phone unattended. My heart pounded as I stared at it. The screen was face down, just like it always was. I told myself to leave it alone. Then it lit up. A message preview flashed across the screen. "Leo Carter, make sure she stays in the dark. We are almost there." The room seemed to shrink around me. Almost where? My hands shook as I picked up the phone, reading the message again to make sure I hadn't imagined it. My mind raced through the possibilities: another woman, hidden accounts, something worse. The shower turned off. Panic surged through me. I placed the phone back exactly where it had been and collapsed onto the couch, gripping my knees to stop my hands from shaking. Adrian walked out moments later, towel around his waist, completely at ease. "Did you decide on dinner?" he asked. "Not yet," I replied, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. He picked up his phone without hesitation, unlocking it like there was nothing to hide. That night, I didn't confront him. If Adrian was planning something this carefully, I needed proof. Real proof. So I stayed silent. I let him kiss me goodnight. I let him believe I was still in the dark. But as I lay awake beside him, one thought echoed in my mind: who the hell is Leo Carter, and what are they almost finished with? The question followed me into the next morning like a shadow. Who was Leo Carter? I moved through my routine on autopilot: coffee, shower, emails, but my mind was locked on that single name. Across the table, Adrian scrolled through his phone, calm and unbothered, like a man who hadn't been plotting my downfall in secret. Then he looked up and smiled. "Hey, can you sign something for me real quick?" I nearly choked on my coffee. "Sign what?" "Just some financial updates." "Tax stuff," he said, sliding a folder across the table. His tone was casual, but his fingers tapped against the table in an uneven rhythm. "A tell." I picked up the papers and began to skim. Legal language blurred together until one phrase snapped into focus. Property transfer agreement. My heart slammed against my ribs. I flipped to the last page. My name. My assets. My savings. Our condo. All of it transferred to Adrian. Slowly, I looked up. Adrian was watching me closely, a careful smile fixed on his face. "What is this?" I asked, keeping my voice controlled. "It's just a precaution," he said smoothly. "A legal convenience. Nothing changes between us." "Nothing changes," I repeated. "You're asking me to sign everything over to you." "Not everything," he replied quickly. "Just consolidating things. Protection, Maya. In case something happens." Rage burned through me, sharp and clear. This wasn't paranoia. This was a plan. "I'm not signing this," I said, placing the papers back on the table. His smile twitched. "Don't be dramatic. It's just paperwork." "Then why are you so eager for me to sign without reading it?" The room shifted. Adrian leaned in slightly, his voice lowering. "You really don't want to do this?" There it was. Not anger. A warning. "Is that a threat?" I asked calmly. For a moment, his mask slipped. Then he leaned back, arms crossed, expression unsettlingly calm. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said. He was waiting for me to panic. To cry. To break. Instead, I smiled. "You're right," I said lightly, standing up. "I need time to think." His eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected that. That night, Adrian acted like nothing had happened. He made a drink, watched the news, scrolled through his phone. But I saw it clearly now. He wasn't trying to save our marriage. He was planning his exit, and he wanted everything when he left. The next morning, he didn't waste time. "I think we should separate," he said, setting his coffee down like this was just another conversation. There it was. "You've been planning this," I said quietly. "It's for the best," he replied. "We've grown apart." I leaned forward. "You mean you want out, but you don't want to leave empty-handed?" He didn't deny it. I let the silence stretch, then said the words that changed everything. "I already moved my assets." Adrian froze. "What?" His voice was sharp, controlled. "I protected myself," I said, meeting his gaze. For the first time, I saw it, the moment he realized he had lost control. His smile returned, cold and calculated. "You're going to regret this." Maybe it was a threat. Maybe it was desperation. Either way, I was ready. The knock on the door came the next morning. Sharp. Measured. Official. I had just taken my first sip of coffee when the sound echoed through the apartment. Something in my chest tightened. I already knew, before I even reached the door. A man in a navy blazer stood outside, holding a thick envelope. "Maya Brooks." "Yes." "You've been served." The weight of the envelope felt heavier than paper as I closed the door behind me. I didn't open it right away. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at it, letting the reality sink in. Adrian had moved fast. When I finally slid the papers out, my stomach twisted. Petition for dissolution of marriage. I skimmed the financial demands, disbelief turning into bitter laughter. Adrian wanted half of everything: the condo, the car, shared assets, and on top of that, spousal support. Of course he did. An hour later, I was sitting across from Lauren, my attorney. Her office smelled like polished wood and fresh ink. She flipped through the documents calmly, then stopped at the financial section. "Well," she said, tapping her pen against the page, "this is going to disappoint him." I raised an eyebrow. "That bad for him?" She smirked. "Worse? He's got nothing." I blinked. "Just like that." "You moved your assets into a trust before he filed," she explained. "Legally, he has no access. He can try for spousal support, but given your income history versus his, it's not happening." For the first time in weeks, my shoulders relaxed. That evening, the front door slammed open. I didn't flinch. Adrian stormed in, fury rolling off him in waves. His tie was loosened, his jaw clenched so tight I could practically hear his teeth grind. "You think you're clever," he snapped. I took a slow sip of my wine. "I think I finally protected myself." His hands curled into fists. "You planned this." "So did you." The silence between us was heavy, loaded. Finally, he muttered, "This isn't over." I knew that already. The first sign of trouble came at work. The whispers started before lunch. Conversations cut short when I walked by. Lingering looks that made my skin prickle. By mid-morning, my assistant Emily hesitated outside my office. "I think you should know something," she said quietly. "What is it?" "There's a rumor going around," she said, wringing her hands. "People are saying you moved money illegally, that you're laundering funds." My blood went cold. Adrian's been talking, she added quickly. Lawyers. Mutual friends. He's spreading it. I was at Lauren's office within the hour, slamming printed screenshots onto her desk. He's trying to ruin me, I said through clenched teeth. Lauren glanced at the papers and let out a dry chuckle. That's defamation. So we stop him. We will, she said calmly. We send a cease and desist. If he ignores it, we escalate. But deep down, I knew this wasn't about winning anymore. Adrian wasn't trying to take my money now. He was trying to destroy me. And that meant one thing. The game was far from over. Adrian didn't stop. If anything, he escalated. The call from Lauren came the next morning. He's filed a motion for a full financial audit, she said without preamble. I closed my eyes. On what grounds? He's claiming you mismanaged joint funds. It's nonsense, but it's meant to drain you. Legal fees. Time. Stress. Of course it was. Adrian had always played the long game. If he couldn't win outright, he would exhaust me. Not this time, I said. We fight back. 2 weeks later, we faced each other in court. Adrian looked confident, too confident. His lawyer spoke first, accusing me of hiding assets and manipulating records. I didn't flinch. Lauren stood calmly. All financial actions were taken before the divorce filing. There is no evidence of fraud. The judge reviewed the documents. Motion denied, they ruled. Mr. Brooks will cover all legal fees. The gavel fell. Adrian lost again. Outside the courtroom, he muttered, "You think this is over? Just wait." I didn't have to wait long. The next morning, Lauren's voice was tight on the phone. Adrian and Leo Carter filed a formal complaint, she said. They are accusing you of financial fraud. Criminal-level accusations. My stomach dropped. They submitted evidence, she continued. But it's fake. Poorly done. Hope flickered. How do you know? The timestamps don't match. The accounts didn't even exist at the time they claim the transfers happened. That was the mistake. That's it, I said. I'm done defending. We go on the offensive. Lauren smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. We filed a countersuit, defamation, falsified evidence, full damages. In court, the forensic analyst dismantled every fake document. Adrian's lawyer whispered urgently to him. His face went pale. Then Lauren delivered the final blow. My client is countersuing Mr. Brooks and his associate, Leo Carter. Adrian's lawyer stood quickly. We withdraw all claims. Too late. The judge ruled against him. Legal costs. Damages. Case closed. Outside the courthouse, Adrian walked past me without a word. I leaned in just enough to whisper, "We are done." For the first time in months, I felt peace. The morning air felt heavier than usual. Every step I took through the apartment reminded me of Adrian's betrayal. Coffee tasted bitter in my mouth, and the silence pressed against me like a weight I couldn't lift. I told myself I wouldn't let his words from the night before get to me. But then came the knock at the door, sharp, measured, official. I set my coffee down and took a deep breath. A man in a navy blazer stood there, holding a thick envelope. Maya Brooks, he asked, voice blank. Yes, I said cautiously. You've been served. He handed me the envelope and walked away without another word. My fingers tightened around the papers. The weight of them felt heavier than it should have been. I didn't even have to open it to know what it was. At the kitchen table, I slid the flap open, revealing the petition for dissolution of marriage. My eyes scanned the page. Financial demands. Adrian wasn't just leaving, he wanted half of everything: the condo, the car, 50% of our shared assets. And because he had the audacity, spousal support. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Of course he thought he could take everything. He had been planning this for months, probably longer. The man I had married was cold, but this was calculated. Later that morning, I met with my attorney, Lauren. She flipped through the papers, barely suppressing a smirk. "Well," she said, tapping her nails against the desk, "he's got nothing." I raised a brow. "Just like that." "Just like that," she said. "You moved everything into a trust before he filed. Legally, he has no access. He can fight for spousal support, but given your income and history, it's not happening." Relief washed over me for the first time in weeks. I felt in control again. Adrian had spent all this time thinking he was orchestrating the game, but he had underestimated me. That evening, I was pouring myself a glass of wine when the door slammed open. Adrian stood there, fury radiating from him, tie loosened, jaw clenched so tightly I swore I could hear the grind of his teeth. "You think you're smart, don't you?" he hissed. I took a slow sip of wine, savoring the moment. "I think I'm finally protecting myself." His fists curled at his sides. "You planned this." "So did you," I said, tilting my head. Silence stretched between us, thick with unspoken accusations. Then he muttered, "This isn't over." I exhaled slowly, savoring the victory I had already secured. I had won the first battle, but the war was far from over. 2 days after the court victory, I met with Lauren for the final time. She slid a final stack of papers across her desk. "It's done." "Adrian signed the settlement," she said. I exhaled slowly, my fingers hovering over the documents before finally picking them up. I scanned through the details, even though I already knew the outcome. Adrian got nothing, not a dime. His financial claims were dismissed, his defamation case backfired, and his reputation ruined. He had tried to destroy me, and in the end, he was the one left with nothing. Lauren leaned back in her chair, watching me carefully. "How do you feel?" I let out a quiet laugh, more of an exhale than a sound. "Lighter. Finally, lighter." "You deserve that," she said. I nodded and slipped the documents into my bag. This was it, the final step. I stood and extended my hand. "Thank you, Lauren. For everything." She shook it firmly. "Go enjoy your life, Maya. You've earned it." For the first time in a long time, I believed her. That evening, Naomi and my mother, Eleanor, insisted on a victory dinner. Naomi greeted me with a mischievous grin and a champagne glass. "To freedom," she said, raising her glass. "And to never letting a man think he can outsmart you again." I clinked my glass against hers, laughing. "I'll drink to that." We ate, talked, reminisced. For the first time in months, I wasn't constantly looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the next hit. The war was over. Later that night, I stood on my balcony, gazing at the city skyline. The lights shimmered, stretching infinitely into the horizon. Everything felt different. I was no longer the woman who had ignored the warning signs. No longer the woman who had believed in the illusion of safety or permanence. I had lost trust, time, and the version of love I thought I had, but I had gained strength, clarity, and control. My phone vibrated on the table beside me. Unknown number. I didn't hesitate. Blocked. I turned back to my laptop, opening a blank document. A new chapter. A new story. My story. As I closed the laptop, I whispered, "This is my story now." Life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. Sometimes, the people we trust the most are the ones who betray us the deepest. But strength isn't about avoiding betrayal, it's about how you rise after it. When I stood at the edge of my marriage, I could have let fear and doubt consume me. But instead, I fought, not just for my finances, but for my dignity, my freedom, and my future. And if there's one thing I hope you take from my story, it's this: you are stronger than you think. If you've ever been blindsided, if you've ever felt like the rug was pulled from under you, know this: you are not alone. Life may throw its worst at you, but it's in those moments that you discover who you truly are. Sometimes, walking away from what no longer serves you is the greatest victory of all.